So I think having that support and understanding from a younger age that mindset really is the key to getting through kind of whatever, good, bad, or indifferent, was really big. So finding out I had some health issues in my early 20s, you know, for the person that you see now is not the person I was when I was 19. I was 200 pounds. I was sick. I was having autoimmune symptoms. I was in rough shape. So getting to a point where I decided that I was not going to allow that to define my life, and that that's not how my life was going to look, was a major turning point. We're all
on. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. This is HeartMind Alchemy Live, Happy Hour Live. This is my live FaceTime that I'm doing. I'm Holly Copeland. I'm a human potential coach. I live in Wyoming and work all over the world. I am super excited about today's conversation with my dear good friend, Lindsay Calverley, whom is also a human potential coach. And we met at a coach training in Pasadena, and I'm really excited about our conversation today about the power of mindset in challenging times, which seems like a perfect fit for all the COVID craziness we have going on right now, to step back and talk about and the importance of. And so getting Lindsay's perspective on that is going to be invaluable. I'm really excited. Just a little bit more about myself before we get started. I guess I just wanted to say that I'm work in the field, especially of meditation and neuroscience and brainwave science, and really excited working with people. I'm launching a new class starting on Sunday, and I'll say a little bit more about that at the end. But my kind of mantra is, uniting ancient wisdom with modern science. I'm just grooving on all things brainwave science, health and wellness. So yeah, anyway, that's a little bit about me. And now let's turn to our fabulous featured guest here, Lindsay Calverley. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hey, Holly. Thanks for having me today. I'm super stoked to do Happy Hour with you.
Yeah, well, super stoked that you're here. Yeah, and so you and I met in Pasadena, and it's interesting when I read your background. I'm like, oh, no wonder, when we had that very first interaction in front of Starbucks and you said a little bit about what you did, I was, in my mind, my mental dialogue was like, yeah, she's my girl. She's we're on the same vibe.
This is my tribe, right?
And then as I got to know you, you were so my tribe right away. It was awesome. And then, the more I got to know you, I understood why I picked up on that vibe so quickly. So you're a human potential coach. You're a personal trainer. You're a 2-time black belt. And then I love this. I love this about you, that you do what's it called? The American Ninja Warrior. You test out American Ninja Warrior training sites. I want you to say a little bit about that. You have a passion for running and CrossFit. And I guess the other thing you and I really immediately grooved around was we're both biohackers, which fits in with my brainwave science stuff. And you were the first person when you're my first friend that when I started talking to you and I dropped coffee enemas, you were like, oh yeah, of course I know all about that,
Totally.
I've got to tell you, there aren't other friends that I can talk about coffee enemas. I know, it's awesome. I just love that about you. So your biohacking knowledge is second to none. You know so much, really deep on health and wellness and all the really kind of the cutting edge biohacking stuff you're very hip on. And so I don't know how much we'll go into that today, but I just really respect that about you. You've got a lot of amazing knowledge.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm flattered. I'm flattered because I feel very much the same about you. I'm constantly in awe of the amount of information you have on biofeedback and brainwave technology and how the brain works. So I love that we've been able to partner up on this. And to your point, it was kind of cool, like looking across the room and listening to you introduce yourself at that workshop. I was like, I need to know her. And like that simultaneous moment where you lock eyes with somebody and you're like, yes, we're going to work together today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, within maybe 20 or 30 seconds of meeting you, I was like, I had this feeling we'd work together. So here we are. How cool is that, huh?
Stoked.
So yeah, very, very cool. So anyway, let's get down to talking a little bit about the topic of mindset. We are in such an interesting time right now. You know, everybody is, I think, readjusting their life to being at home, you know, having toddlers at home. I was just talking to somebody this morning in that situation, you know, parents that we might be worried about, people who are, you know, I wake up in the morning and my normal routine, going to work and interacting with folks, isn't there anymore. And I'm struggling with routine. I heard that on a call I was on this morning too. So lots of people, I think, struggling to adjust and figure out, you know, and there's a ton of uncertainty. And I hear and feel a lot of anxiety around that uncertainty. And we can talk about surrender and trust around that as well. Surrender always comes up. I'm gonna tattoo it on my arm one of these days.
Cross my forehead.
Yeah. We gotta go do that sometime. So there's obviously a lot of very real challenges that people are dealing with. And then financial uncertainty is a huge one too. You know, that's real for a lot of people. So in the context of that though, you know, this concept of mindset and what we bring to the challenges is just so key. And so I think maybe to lay it out, what I'd love for you to start by doing is just tell us a little bit about your story and how mindset played such a key role in the story. I know you've had a lot of health challenges over the years, and how did mindset play into that?
You know, I mean, mindset's probably the number one most important thing that I can pinpoint in terms of being able to navigate some really difficult situations. I grew up in an extremely abusive household. So between that and then in my early, you know, late teens, early 20s, finding some health issues that were really kind of serious, learning to adjust my mindset is something that became crucial for me. And interestingly enough, and my dad grew up as like English Catholic, right? He was very much a traditional religion person, but he was very Buddhist in what he taught my brother and I. You know, he always used to tell us that, you know, you can do anything for 2 weeks, you can do anything for 30 seconds, you can do anything for 4 hours, right? You can persist. You are resilient. You can do this. You can get through hard things. And we have always had that kind of bond. So I think having that support and understanding from a younger age that mindset really is the key to getting through kind of whatever, good, bad, or indifferent was really big. So finding out I had some health issues in my early 20s, you know, for the person that you see now is not the person I was when I was 19. I was 200 pounds. I was sick. I was having autoimmune symptoms. I was in rough shape. So getting to a point where I decided that I was not going to allow that to define my life, and that's not how my life was going to look, was a major turning point. And it forced me to really get serious around, you know, my own journey and what I wanted my story to be.
Wow. So you just said, like, you just decided you wanted your story to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because you know, as much as my dad always kind of instilled that idea behind everything, you know, in my mid 20s, I ended up getting 1090 tattooed on my arm. And it's my reminder that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond. So it's there. It is tattooed on my body for when I need a reminder. But, you know, I think that was probably one of the better moves I could have ever made. And I had it done in my dad's handwriting.
Yeah. Wow. And so from that point, when you made that decision to to write a different story for yourself, then what happened? What did you
Oh,
do?
everything went to shit. Everything went to shit.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I was in my late teens, early 20s. I had zero coping mechanisms coming out of an abusive household growing up with my mother. I learned real quickly that I didn't know anything, and that the way that I was coping with stuff wasn't going to work for me. So there was a lot of contact with therapists that I found really, really helpful in dealing with trauma, especially around that upbringing, and also some sexual assault that happened while I was in high school. So working through those things and realizing how much that trauma lives in our body and how insidious it can be, and the lessons or the stories that it tells us, that our brain loves to make patterns out of, right? Something looks unsafe, feels unsafe, your brain creates a pattern and it runs with it. So seeing all of those areas where those old wounds, those old traumas come up, and starting to become more of an investigative sleuth, with my own mindset and my own body, and figuring out, wow, when this happens, I feel like this, and this is what happens in my body as a result. And learning how to tune into that became really, really important. And I was able to learn how to do that through a series of working with practitioners on EMDR and some somatic experiencing. But about 10 years ago, learning how to meditate properly. It was hard. Yeah, it definitely was not an easy journey learning how to meditate. I don't think it is for anybody. But perhaps one of the most impactful things I've ever done with my life, in terms of being able to really take control of not just my mind, but my body as well.
Yeah. So really, it's what I'm hearing you say is you went within. You had to go within to rewrite that and reprogram that story, right?
Yeah, I think that's true of anything. The answers are never external to us. No answer that we're ever looking for is going to be external. It's always going to be inside of us somewhere. And there's something going on, right? When we're experiencing, especially during traumatic times like right now, I think everybody's got a little bit of a trauma response going on. And if you've got long-standing PTSD or long-standing anxiety or depression that's, linked back to some other stories that have gone on through your life, people are highly activated. So being able to come back to your body and identify where it's living and what it feels like and what the qualities of it are is really, really important, to be able to make the decision on how you're going to deal with it and what your mindset is going to be throughout it. And that's not to say that you can gloss over it. There's, I think a lot of people misinterpret choosing your mindset as doing the fake it till you make it thing. And I hate that term, because you can't fake this stuff, right? It's within you. And if you're out of alignment, it's not going to work. And you're going to feel it, and your body's going to feel it, and you're going to be agitated, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be depressed. It's more about going in and identifying and having that internal awareness of what's going on in your body state. And it is a state, right? Anxiety, depression, they're all states. They're not traits that are inborn in us. They're just things that are happening, right? They're symptoms that manifest as a result of conditions, internal to ourselves. So as much as we like to place blame on that external, and we like to look for external things, it becomes really important to have the awareness to catch yourself and slow down and turn inward and kind of say, hey, what's going on with me? What am I feeling? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling an old story come up where I don't feel like I'm equipped, or like I'm enough, or like I'm trapped, So having words to go with it is big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really, befriending your inner self, right?
Yeah. I like to use RAIN. When I'm working with my clients, this concept around, it's an acronym, and it stands for recognize, accept, investigate, and then non-attachment. So letting it go. And non-attachment doesn't mean forcing it away, right? It means allowing it to just be there and integrate into your experience so that it can begin to be functional again. But going through this process of recognizing what you're feeling and just holding it gently and saying, wow, like I didn't realize this was here. And investigating it a little bit, you know, what's coming up for me? How does it feel? Where do I feel it? And just being kind of in awe, you know, of how cool our bodies are, that they can give us these signals when we haven't done anything, you know, but just exist.
And is for you that meditative process? You also mentioned tools like EMDR, you know, a little bit more like active in our environment, or a combination of both.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination. A lot of times my brain is on the fly at this point, you know, or I feel something come up and I go, ooh, interesting. What was that? Yeah, I wonder what caused that reaction or that response in my body. And like, what's going on here? But absolutely, it can be a very meditative practice to go inside, or a lot of people like to journal. I think journaling is a great way to really investigate what you're feeling, doing some free writing, especially if you're stressed out and you're really feeling the trauma response.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of one of my favorite sayings is Pema Chodron's feel the feeling, drop the story. You know, to allow ourselves to sit with a feeling and then be like, I'm going to drop the story behind it. And it's a very powerful thing. And when I've done that for things that I've felt really emotionally charged around, it was amazing to me how dropping the story actually helped me work through the feeling quite quickly, because without a story behind it, you know, you can process that feeling and be like, oh, I feel what anger feels like. That's an interesting feeling. But anger without the story behind it doesn't stay very long. Super interesting, right?
Yeah, it just kind of reactivates. And the other side of that is kind of the Brene Brown side of life, right? I love teaching my clients to use the phrase, the story that I'm telling myself is. Right? It's a great investigative practice to be able to say, well, the story that I'm telling myself is that this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to be the result of that. And to your point, then dropping the story and going, wow, I feel really anxious over that. Like, man, I'm really mad, or whatever the feeling is behind that. But being able to really investigate that, yeah, you know, they go beautifully hand in hand. You've got to be able to recognize the story and then pull it apart from the feeling.
Yeah, they do go hand in hand. I love that. Great. That's a great point from Renee. So knowing that about mindset and how it obviously really like incredibly challenging situation when I hear what you the trauma that you experienced growing up in. How for you does that apply in terms of as you coach people with, like, let's say a situation now where they're feeling a lot of anxiety around the unknown future, financially or otherwise, you know, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the gifts that trauma gives us is that we become very much a weather vane. You become hypersensitive to what other people are feeling, you know, and I think being able to feel that feeling and really sense it, and then having the words to go with it, that a lot of times I think people tend to lack. You know, it's hearing the story and being able to mirror back to them, wow, here's what I'm hearing, right? Mm-hmm. I'm hearing this and maybe a little bit of this feeling. Does that sound accurate? And helping them kind of unpack what that looks like. But truly, I think it's kind of the beauty side of trauma, right? It allows you to be hypersensitive to what you're experiencing in your environment and the people that you're interacting with. And if you can harness that for good, right? Because I think some people who've experienced a lot of trauma in their lives tend to take that on, and they experience it very much as their own versus just being able to hold space for it. So it's learning to separate yourself from what somebody else is feeling, but also being very aware of the energy that's going on and the, you know, the story that's going on with it and the feelings that might be being experienced.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that also for me brings up you know, you talked about the importance of meditation and learning to meditate, and such a huge part of meditation is learning to be the witness. And when I hear you talk, it's really about, you know, can you become the witness to what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And going through that process of becoming a coach, I know you're extremely familiar as a human potential coach as well. Learning to hold that space for somebody without fixing, right? Just allowing space to investigate and recognizing that most people have tools that they need. They just don't realize that they have them.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to help them find the words and help them investigate the experience in a meaningful way so that they learn those tools and can fish on their own.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for people listening to this, recognize you can do this for yourself, right? So what Pema Chodron's saying, feel the feeling and drop the story. You can hold the space for yourself to witness, I feel anger, I feel anxiety, and recognize that you're, separate your thoughts and your feelings from your larger, bigger true self. And that's a very powerful way to start to let it not have so much control over you. And
recognizing that it's not yours.
Right.
It's not a part of you. It's just an experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, the more that you do that, right, the more that you can witness the thoughts that you're having, the feelings that you're having, the more that you can begin to become much more internally resilient, because they don't own you anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's see. So what are some ways to stay in this, where things are happening around us and there's a lot of anxiety and we're experiencing other people's anxiety? What are some ways that you think are really helpful to stay grounded and aware of that environment without getting sucked into it?
One of the things that I've instituted for myself and that I've recommended for a number of people is really limit the news consumption.
Mm-hmm.
If not to say that it's not important to know what's going on and not to stay up to date, but limit yourself to 5-10 minutes in the morning or in the afternoon, and then let it go. Don't sit with the TV on watching the counters go up every day, right? Because that's just going to build the anxiety. It's going to feel heavier. It's going to feel scarier. And that's, especially the TV news media, they're there for ratings. Yeah. So the more that they can do to kind of drum up this draw, right? So, turn off the damn news. Go find something that you like to do, right? And have an open dialogue with the people around you. Find people around you that help you feel safe. This is bringing up a lot of feelings of lack of safety for people, and myself included. This is a scary environment when you've never experienced something like this before, and I don't think anybody has. So, having that open dialogue around, what, I'm feeling a little on edge, and having somebody that you can have that conversation with that can hold space without trying to fix it, is really, really helpful. And if you know me and you need somebody like that, I'm here. Reach out. I know Holly is exactly the same way. If you know one of us and you need somebody who can just be a container because you need to talk, find somebody who's safe, that's not going to try to fix how you're feeling or shut it down or tell you to just ignore it or just stop being dramatic or stop being negative, because it's not helpful to push away these feelings and to bury them and deny that they exist. You can't force fear and sadness and darkness out, right? It has to be integrated as part of the experience, because the beautiful experience of being human is that it is the dichotomy of light and dark and the interplay between the two, and realizing that they exist for a reason. And, really having that ability to have the open dialogue around what your sensation is and what your experience is like is important, without it necessarily drumming up more fear or judgment or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I absolutely agree. And to our earlier point about dropping the story, though, you know, when we can hold the container for ourselves or others without feeding it with a story, or identify what that story is. Oh, that story is me feeling, you know, lack of safety, or something like that. And what would it be like if, you know, if I didn't have that, or where can I take that feeling? Is so important. And I really hear you. I so agree with you about news and news consumption. I'm actually at the extreme end. I don't watch any news. I get it secondhand through my husband, who watches the news, and I'm like, okay, great. Well, over dinner, you give me the update on what I need to know. And I literally don't know anything and about current events, because I made a decision a while back that it just wasn't serving me. And, you know, so, you know, nobody's forcing you to watch the news, people.
Yeah.
You know,
there are other ways to stay informed. You know, there are other ways to cultivate information. But if you feel like it's more anxiety inducing than not, then turn it off.
Right.
You know,
I couldn't agree with you more. I often play this game with myself that, well, if I lived in 1950, I wouldn't know this. So, you know, why, just because I happen to live in 2020, does that mean that I have to watch the news just because I can? And my answer to that is no. There's no moral obligation that I have to participate in watching the news. I mean, I vote, I try to inform myself on, but for me, the answer is what information do I need to know to have a positive impact on the world? And That's my filter, right? If I need to know it so I can make a better decision, then I will seek out that information. But I'm not just going to watch information or consume information with no specific purpose.
Yeah, no, and I think that goes for anything. You know, being ruthlessly selective about cultivating the type of information that you can bring into your life that's not going to bring excess, unneeded negative energy, right? Mm-hmm. Or anxiety inducing energy. You know, being ruthless about, this is how it's going to go down.
Yeah. I love that you use that word ruthless, because I used it with a client last week. On this exact conversation, I told her, I was like, I'm ruthless about what I choose to do. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't feel any obligation to watch any specific news just because other people are doing it. Yeah. But I'm ruthless about, yes, I'm going to meditate because that's super important. Yes, I'm going to eat really healthy. Yes, I'm going to connect with friends that are, some of my best peeps that, like you, that are, positive influences on me in the world. Those are the things, yes, I'm going to be there for my family and cook a healthy meal. Those are the things that matter.
Yep.
And, the other stuff doesn't really matter.
Well, and I think you just hit on, yeah, you do. And unapologetic, right? Totally. Setting that boundary, being unapologetic about, this is what I'm going to do for my health so that I can show up for other people. And you nailed two other huge ones, right? Making sure that you're eating well, your nutrition is on point and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing the things that are going to make a difference, right? The meditation, the proper nutrition, the proper sleep, and then connecting with community. We're at a time right now, we're sitting on 2 different platforms with technology, and twice this week I've had either happy hours or coffee dates with people via Zoom, and it's connecting with, 5, 6 people that I may not necessarily get to connect with all the time, even face to face, because everybody's so busy. So it's providing this really cool opportunity to be able to connect with people more easily. So use it, yeah. Getting a Zoom account is free, and right. Learning to meditate is free, and if you're looking to utilize technology for that, there are ways to do that. There's a million different ways to learn how to do those things. Yeah, but having the right habits on board and creating those habits makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And we'll come back to that in just a second, but I wanted to offer and ask you this question, and anybody else who's watching, I invite you to answer this question in your head. This question was on a coaching call this morning, that coaching training call. So I'll give credit to Val for this beautiful question, which is, what is something surprisingly delightful that has come out of the COVID situation for you?
Yeah. And for me, it's been this realization of community, deep community, and being able to reconnect with people. You know, I've been an athlete my whole life, and being able to connect with my gym, the Ninja Warrior guys, you know, they're training in Chicago because they're running Instagram workouts. I all of a sudden have the ability to work out with them again, which is so fun to me. And really having kind of that dice roll, right? I can work out with the CrossFit community online. I can work out with one of the local gyms I have a relationship with online. I can work out with my people in Chicago or my dance group online. So it's this really beautiful like sense of community and having almost too many choices, you know, and it's cool. It's really neat to see the shift. How about you?
Similar, you know, all these really wonderful online things have blossomed, including extra online meditations with various community that I've been involved with. And there are actually so many that I can't do all of the ones I want to do.
Did you, have you seen that Spirit Rock is offering all of their retreats online right now? So for anybody watching, Spirit Rock is a really amazing Vipassana community in Northern California. Their retreats are, they're costly, right? But they are worth it, and they're fantastic. And they're offering many of them on a sliding scale, all remote.
Yeah, I did.
So
it's funny. I actually did see that. But as a mom with 2 kids and a husband, I couldn't do a 7-day retreat at home by myself and have it actually be a retreat.
I think they've got like 8 to 5 and like 24-hour ones too. They've got some shorter ones. Yeah, they do have the 7 days though.
Yeah, I would love to go. Actually, it's a dream of mine to go and do a 7-day retreat there. So as soon as they open back up, do you want to go?
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm in.
It's a date. I'm in. High five. Yeah. Awesome. So if anybody else in the comments wants to leave what their surprisingly delightful thing is, I would love to, you know, hear your answers to that. So please leave your feedback on the surprisingly delightful question.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned the importance of health and wellness and taking care of yourself in this challenging time. And you are just a fountain of amazing health knowledge. People, whenever I have a question about a supplement and what it does, Lindsay is my go-to person. She is like, knows more about that kind of end of diet than anybody I know. And so I'm super curious what your, you know, what are some tips that you have for people, or some really important health and wellness strategies that are at the top of your list?
Sleep. This is a great opportunity to rest. Get some sleep. I know it's tough. A lot of people are home with families and kids, and, you know, a lot of times it's more exhausting being home all the time, right? Because you're trying to balance being mom and a teacher and, you know, a wife, or whatever your identities are, right? And all of a sudden you're in one location doing all of these identities all at once. So I think it's really important to balance that and make sure you're getting proper rest, because it's so easy to let those habits slip, right? We're used to, it's a school night or a work night, I'm going to be in bed by 10:30 because I have to be up by this time. And now we're home and it's like, well, I really have to, or can I watch that last episode of Tiger King and you know, let it kind of slide. So making sure that you keep whatever habits you can for normalcy intact, and understanding with some grace for yourself where you need some slack on that, right? It's not going to be perfect, but have some awareness around what your normal routine is versus right now. if you're just transitioning to being at home all the time, I've been a remote worker for six-ish years now, if not a little bit more. Get a morning routine. Making sure that when you get up in the morning, you have some form of routine that grounds you into your day and just kind of dictates, this is what I do to get started and get rolling. That's super important. You know, for me, it's waking up, I unload my dishwasher, I feed the dog, I go through my, you know, my morning wellness routine, I take my supplements. It's little stuff that kind of keys my brain into next step, next step, next step, next step. And this is what I need to do to be productive, because otherwise it's really easy to just transition from night pajamas to day pajamas and, you know, zone out or numb out or whatever your, you know, whatever your vice is.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more about the morning routine. Well, about both sleep, the importance of sleep, and a consistent morning routine. And I too have had a consistent routine for a long time. It's starting to, you know, it's changed and evolved, but there's always a routine. There's always a plan. I don't go to bed without a plan, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that's such a key strategy. You know, and for me, it's wake up, tea, empty the dishwasher, feed the dog also, and then walk the dog briefly, and then meditate, and then run. I go for a run every morning. And then do a smoothie, like packed with nutrients, and then start my day. And for me, it means I start a little bit later than, you know, I used to. I don't start at 8. I actually start at 9 because I have to, you know, to get all those things in. But then when I get to sit down at 9, sometimes it's 9:15. I am just like supercharged, and I mean, I'm super efficient because I'm like ready to work.
Yeah.
You know,
No, and I'm very much the same way. You know, I start my morning off, you know, you get up, do the dishwasher, feed the dog, let him out, do his thing. I've for years done a coffee enema every single morning, and that's a process. But get done with that, jump in the shower, get dressed. That's a huge part of morning routines. Like, get yourself dressed, even if it's just changing into yoga pants or joggers or whatever. Change your clothes, get out of your PJs and your night stuff. So that way you're kind of fresh and ready for the day, and it signals your brain that you're ready to roll with things. So whatever your morning routine is, but you know, you also take less time to be equally as productive when you're working from home.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the old homeschooling thing, right? Kids don't need 8 hours a day of homeschooling. They need like 3. And
right.
I think that's the beauty of working from home as well. You know, you don't necessarily always need 8 full hours of work. You need 4 really productive hours where you get everything that you need to get done. And however you get to that 4 hours makes a difference.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And now working that, you know, chunked block type work strategy where you're like, okay, I sit down at 9, I work for an hour and a half and take a break. And it's a super productive hour and a half. And then, you know, take a break and then work for another hour and a half. If you do that, you don't, believe it or not, you don't have to work for 8 hours because you get everything you can get done in a 8-hour day in much less time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you have time for more fun things.
And hobbies, you know, having, even if it's just coloring,
you
know, read a book, color, don't just watch TV. Find something that's going to enrich your brain, that's going to enrich your motor skills. You know, it's going to make your brain work a little bit differently because it'll develop different connections.
I have a number of clients who have sleep issues or, you know, challenged with sleep issues. I'm curious a little bit about some of your top strategies for that. I mean, when I think about tackling, you know, sleep issues, and, you know, there's the kind of, you know, light, and thinking about light exposure and making the environment and the set time, but then there's also the supplement world and melatonin and serotonin. I'm kind of curious, you know, can you quickly run down your list of how you tackle sleep issues?
Yeah, I mean, light is a big thing. You know, try to cut down on your screen time before bed, you know, a couple of hours before. Try not to eat 3-4 hours before bed if you can avoid it, because your body is going to be focused on digestion and your sleep's not going to be quite as good. I've got a pair of True Dark glasses that if I'm kind of struggling to gear down that night, I absolutely throw on my deep red, you know, superhero glasses, and they look super geeky, but man, do they work. Within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, my brain's like, I received that signal. We're ready to go to bed. But again, having a routine. Having a routine is just super important. Black out your bedroom as much as possible. Keep it cool. Some supplements, like you mentioned, melatonin. I'm not a huge fan of using melatonin because it's a hormone, and using it can kind of throw off your long-term hormonal balance in that regard. But I do use 5-HTP quite a bit for increased serotonin, and you need serotonin to make melatonin.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
things
key.
that, yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at supplements, it's a great one, but definitely check with your doctor, especially if you're on any SSRIs or anything like that. It's important to connect on that because that can throw off your balance pretty quickly. But 5-HTP is an awesome supplement.
Magnesium at night, is that another one you do?
Which one?
Magnesium.
Yeah, I use magnesium at night quite a bit. Something as simple as Natural Calm, mag citrate. Just make sure you don't take too much of it, because too much magnesium citrate equals disaster pants. And that's not good for a good night's sleep. So, but yeah, like little bits, definitely super helpful. Or a magnesium oil. So it usually comes in a spray bottle. I prefer that method.
Okay, interesting. What else? Anything else that you put on your quick go-to list?
Yeah, my lights go off at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
All my stuff is on a timer. So at 9 o'clock, my lights just go off on their own. And that's usually, especially now with daylight being a little bit longer, I'm like, oh God, it's 9 o'clock already? Like, I need to get serious about gearing down. I don't let things go much past 7 o'clock that need to get done, so that I can just relax and gear in. Hot salt baths.
Those are great tips. Do you use valerian root at all? Valerian root tea?
I haven't, but I know people that love it.
Yeah. I've had some luck with it when I don't have sleep issues now really anymore, but when I've been in kind of a more anxious time and I get stuck in a cycle like that, what I find is valerian root tea can help, or I'm sure you could take in capsule form, can help kick me out of that cycle. It seems to help a lot.
It's also another really great point of awareness. If you're noticing that you're having trouble sleeping and it started when X started, or when I eat this, I don't sleep well. I notice that if I eat past 5 or 6 o'clock, I don't sleep well. That's just how I am. Or if I eat something really heavy, I don't sleep as well. It tends to keep me up. So being really aware of the things that are going on in your environment and realizing, oh, hey, that happened, and I had a really, really junky night's sleep that night. And just looking out for the patterns, because that can inform too, and from a nutrition standpoint, things like sensitivities and allergies can throw all of that off.
Completely.
It's a pretty good indicator that, if you're eating something that's not agreeing with you and it's causing downstream issues like sleep, you're probably having some methylation issues too, which is how your body processes everything that comes through it, for breakdown and detoxification and everything else. So just important things to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah. And, one that comes to mind immediately is alcohol. I don't really drink anymore, and you don't, I know, but back in the days when I did drink wine, I noticed that, even a cup or two of wine can definitely mess with your sleep.
Yeah, especially if you monitor your sleep with something like, I use my Garmin watch, or you can use like an Oura ring, or there's a lot of biohacker tools for measuring your sleep, and there's even some apps on your phone that you can use. Personally, I like the more on my body type stuff, so I can measure heart rate and things like that and see when I'm dropping into REM or deep sleep. Yeah, there's that old belief, a couple of drinks before bed or a nightcap, and I sleep better, I go to sleep better, but the quality of sleep is actually worse. I noticed absolutely when I stopped drinking, the quality of my sleep changed immensely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I've played around with those sleep apps, Sleep Cycle, and it's actually really fun. I encourage folks to do it if you haven't done it. That Sleep Cycle, you just set it on your nightstand, and it listens, so it can hear the sound of you know, what's going on. You put your phone on airplane mode so you don't have any EMF interference going on. And then you get a graph of how deep your sleep was the next morning. And it sounds like you've played with some other ones. It can be really eye-opening.
Yeah, it really is, especially if you're using something, you know, like a personal biofeedback device like the Oura Ring or a watch. When you open up that app in the morning, you're like, oh, that's why I feel like I got hit by a truck. I had 25 minutes of REM sleep last night. Fantastic. Now I know what I'm working with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, you know, I only got 5 hours of sleep, but I was legally dead for 4.5 hours of that. I was in deep sleep and REM. So makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're geeking out on biohacker tools. So
important stuff to get you through, right? But yeah, I mean, it all ties back to mindset, right? It's really hard to monitor and gauge your mindset and be aware and be plugged in if you're not properly fed, properly slept. You know, even things like sex are important. Get you some. It gets out the hormones, it gets out the energetic release that you need within social distancing guidelines.
All right, human potential coach Lindsay Calverley, get you some.
Get you some.
All right,
but also social distance.
Sage advice, but distance. I'll let you all figure out how to do that.
Probably only works for people that live together, but hey, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, proper nutrition is it's a huge part of mindset, because if you're not properly slept, properly fed, it gets a lot harder to manage stress, and it overloads all of those systems. It activates your vagus nerve, which runs from your brain to every organ in your body, and it starts to kind of wreak havoc. So making sure you got all of that in line will help to better manage your mindset. You'll be able to slow down and catch yourself a lot faster, a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I experienced the power of mindset working with you specifically on fasting. And just, you know, I guess I'll take a minute to tell this story. I had a lot of allergy issues and had been dealing with some mold, and I had been thinking about doing a detox fast. And when I met you, Lindsay, I already had this idea in my mind, and you had just come off a 12-day fast, and you just kind of talk about a shifting perspective. You know, I didn't even, you know, I guess I barely knew that people did that kind of thing. And, you know, and I mentioned it, and you said, oh, I'll help you out. You know, I'll be happy to coach you through it. And I let that sit. And when I came home a couple of weeks later, I did my first 7-day fast. And you just over and over, you know, put that idea in my head that it was all about mindset, you know? Yeah. And that was what I took into it. And sure enough, because I wanted it, because I shifted my mindset around it to be like, Lindsay said, this is completely doable. It's not a big deal. And I just decided, and I'm doing this. And I just decided that you said it wasn't a big deal and I was going to do it. And you know what? It wasn't a big deal, and I totally did it. And it was awesome.
And you rocked it, you know, and you saw the benefit to it, right? It's one of those things that when I'm fasting and somebody says like, wait, how long has it been since you've eaten? And I'm like, 7 days, right? Yeah. It sounds completely unbelievable, but it's 100% mindset, because we get the story, right? We get the story of, I have to eat X number of times a day, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, or, you know, and it strips that away. And after a couple of days, the physical feeling goes away, and it's just all mental chatter, you know, like my mouth is bored, or I just don't like that I usually do this and I eat when I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really puts you in touch with your body, because when you take this, the mindset idea of, I actually get to decide what I think about this, right? Now, you know, it's like, yeah, you're actually in control of it. You know, you're making a decision around it. And you get to choose, you know? So like, I'm cooking dinner for my kids, but I'm not eating it. But I'm like, yeah, but I'm fine, because, you know, I've made that decision. And it's just a shift in perspective, you know?
The food will be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It's a really
as long as you're,
powerful idea that you can really take anywhere. And actually, from fasting was probably more than any other experience taught me about the power of mindset.
yeah, and I think the interesting thing about that, especially if you're doing something kind of prolonged, you know, that you referenced I did 10 days on water and 7 days on juice right before I met you. So it was a full 17 days with no solid food. And, you know, by like day 5, you become really aware of the amount of excess in your life. You're like, huh, I've survived this long and I haven't had a meal. And there are days where I'm freaking out because I haven't eaten in 4 hours. Like, what's that reality about? What's that experience about? Right.
Yeah.
So we've actually got a question from Instagram. It says, where do you find the strength when you cook but don't eat? I'll let you feel that on your side. For me, I just don't have the desire to eat after a couple of days because I understand also that breaking the fast is more important than the fasting itself. So when you get to that point, you can't just put anything in your mouth anymore.
Yeah. You know, for me, the strength is being really in touch with the motivation. So you have to just like, I had decided, this is the power of mindset. I had decided I was doing this for my health and it was really important. And so that overriding factor, that overrid anything else. That's where, so you have to really like be 120% bought in to the reason you're doing it. You won't have the strength if you're not. But if you are, then I think that strength can carry you through, you know, anything, to cooking dinner for your kids while you're not eating it. It's remarkable. The point is you're a lot stronger than you think. You know, I think all of us are, but we just have to decide.
Yeah. I mean, you went all in. You went from never really fasting beyond 18 hours to like, I'm going to do 7 days. Let's just get it done. You went 0 to 60 pretty quickly, but yeah, you know, I mean, I think you're right. You know, especially once you make the decision that you're going to prioritize your health and you're going to allow your body to do what bodies do. Bodies want to heal. Bodies don't want to be, you know, they don't want to be in this state of overwhelm and disrepair. So it's important when you make that decision to really just make sure you're prepared, you know, do your research, talk to somebody that has done it before that can kind of give you some of the quick and dirty tricks, you know, and understand that from a mindset perspective, the first 3 days are usually the hardest.
Right. Oh yeah. Good coaching is invaluable. There's no question about it. So, you know, another aspect of strength for a person who asked that question is, you know, having a partner in your corner, right? Having a good buddy who, you know, you can text and be, if something is hard, can remind you why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And help you through that. I'm going to run really quick and my phone's about to die. So hang on just a second. I need to get a cord.
Cool. I'll answer one more then while Holly's running. The question is, any tips for newbies looking to start their own 2-day water fast? Reach out to me one-on-one. I can definitely coach to that. The big thing is keeping your electrolytes balanced, and you can do that with Celtic or Himalayan sea salt. I like to use Pellegrino. I drink Pellegrino like it's going out of style. But having the minerals is really helpful and helps to kind of keep you balanced. But other than that, drink when you're thirsty, and understand that 90% of the time, if you're getting hunger signals, you're probably thirsty. Just don't overwater yourself and undersalt yourself, because that'll mess with your blood pressure. So.
Wrong cord.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's all mental, especially those first couple of days. It's very mental. You know, your brain will play tricks on you, and it will tell you all kinds of stories to try to get you back into the habit. But just like Holly said, getting in touch with your reason behind it and getting in touch with your why, and then trusting that you're on a path that's going to be helpful for you is definitely a big part of it.
All right, it's going to be a little wonky for the people on Instagram. I'm going to be slightly sideways.
That's okay.
Keep the phone plugged in. heard you talk about San Pellegrino. Yeah, that was such a key. Oh my gosh, that was such a key a tip that you gave. I love that one.
Keeps your mouth engaged too, because it's got the bubbles.
Yeah.
The bubbles just feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of keeps the swamp mouth down. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it really does. It teaches you, and actually, I mean, as you're talking, it's like, it's a powerful tool in teaching you about mindset, right? I mean, and in fact, you're reminding me that one of the take-home messages I got after I did the fast was, I went into it doing it as a physical health reset detox. That's why I went into it. But actually, and it totally had those benefits. I mean, hands down, it really helped me. I don't have allergies anymore, and all kinds of things that I won't go into, but it was hugely helpful. But actually it was more of a spiritual experience than I really realized. And I came to appreciate the spiritual aspect of it probably more than any other part of it.
There's a reason that fasting has been part of every religion since the dawn of time. Whether it's Lent or Ramadan or, Buddhist fasting rituals, like every religion has some level of fasting in it. Mm-hmm. And there's reason behind that, because it really does clear away the excess, and it clears away the junk. It really allows you to get clear on what you're doing this for, and who you are, and what you're in touch with, whatever that is to you. I'm actually playing with the idea of fasting for Ramadan this year.
Interesting. Yeah.
30 days of only during dark hours, right? From sunrise to sunset. That's could be an interesting challenge.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and it really does put you in touch with what the power of mindset and the voice behind what's going on, when you realize, like, oh, I can take control of this thing that's telling me every day to, eat now. It's like, I actually have power over that. You really do.
Well, and it also unlocks this really kind of cool magical thing in your body, right? Especially if you are constantly eating and your body is constantly in this insulin rebound. It's only using the food that you have for fuel and then storing what it doesn't need. It's not accessing some of the stuff that's in storage. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it tanks your metabolism. It's actually quite the opposite. Those first couple of days is a little difficult, but once your body kind of opens that reserve door to everything that your body has been holding on to and storing, and it starts burning fat for fuel, man, the clarity. I know we talked about this a lot, like ultra productive, ultra clear, it does wonders for mindset. All of a sudden you get this boost of like, oh man, now I can play with it, right? I make it a game. I don't get too married to the outcome. It's, okay, I made it to day 2. Let's see if I can make it to day 3. Mm-hmm. Okay, I made it past day 3. I feel great. Let's see if I can make it to day 4 or day 5.
Totally. Yeah. It kind of makes you feel like a superhero, actually.
It does. It's a neat party trick. Like, hey, guess what? I can just not eat for 10, 12 days. When we went into a shelter in place order here in California, I was well stocked on food, but I was joking. Well, I joked with you. I fasted for 6 or 7 days. Looks like we just ended on Instagram. That's okay.
On the hour. Okay.
That's okay. But yeah, it's I was like, oh, I could do this I'm good for 6 weeks. Fast for 10 days, eat for 10 days, fast for 10 days, eat for 10 days. I'm good. Like, let's go.
Well, so we're wrapping up to the hour. I'd love to hear your top 3 tips for people, or what takeaways would you like to give them who have stuck with us and are watching this interview?
Mindset really comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to self-care. So having a routine, doing things that make you feel abundant and strong and grounded, whether that's meditation or baths or, eating well or sleeping well. So having that self-care locked in, having community and leveraging that community, having people that are your biggest cheerleaders is huge, especially when we're going through this. And then just having grace and compassion with yourself, because everybody is having a bit of a trauma response right now. I see a lot of kind of symptomatic PTSD stuff, right? As somebody who's experienced PTSD a number of times in my life, I see it in other people like all over the place right now. So it's just have compassion and grace and understanding that we're going through some uncharted territory, and it's okay to feel rudderless, you know, or scared, or whatever you're feeling. It's totally okay, but have somebody that you can connect with that helps you feel safe.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Those are,
and get some fresh air.
Fresh air. Yeah. Fresh air, community, self-care, eating well. All those are such great tips. Thanks, Lindsay. I love all of them. So where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or work with you? Or
so if you want to learn more about me or work with me, you can go to alchemybrainandbody.com, or you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook under Alchemy Brain and Body. Always happy to talk with anybody that has questions or whatnot. Just hit me up, Facebook, Instagram. You know, my website has a way to schedule a consultation or talk to me. Just request an appointment and I'm there.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, I just have so appreciated this conversation with you. It has been so much fun. So thank you so much for taking the time to come share your wisdom with this community about mindset and your incredible story. You're such a resilient person. You are such an inspiration to me, and I know others that work with you.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm Holly Copeland. You can find me at HeartMind Alchemy Facebook page or heartmindalchemy.com website. I am starting a new 10-week course. I call it Meditation in the 21st Century. It's really based around my Rewire Your Brain program. And we'll be doing an all online kind of group coaching course, working through brain waves, brain hacking, meditation. If you're the type of person who struggles with a busy, monkey mind, you're feeling anxious, and you have tried meditation in the past and it hasn't worked so well and just struggling to make it stick, and you would like to work with other folks who are in that boat, I would absolutely love to have you join us. It's going to be a blast. I'm really excited about it. And we'll also do some brain hacking, talking about supplements and, sleep, I'm sure, and other things like that, all around brain health, how to really build an alpha brain, how to build a calm, clear mind. We'll be talking all about that for the next 10 weeks. So you can find out more about that on my website, heartmindalchemy.com. And I just really appreciate folks for turning out and watching this happy hour. It's been a blast. I love doing it. So thank you for coming and joining us. All right.
Thanks.